Hello, guys, and welcome. Sorry about the delay, first of all. It was a last minute drop. Glad that the patch notes were here for the podcast so we could talk about it. But welcome to episode 8 of the HSBG podcast. It's going to be a good one. We've got the Quilboar Patch finally being released, and we're going to talk about it. Get ready, strap into your seats, and oh, right, Shady is also here.
Quilboars, yeah, okay.
No, but seriously, our great friend Shadybunny, our co-host, constant, here to provide that excellent insight that he always does. So it's gonna be a great time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me as always.
So I have been trying to get the topics done. This is gonna be a doozy. It's almost 3 times as long as my normal topic amount, so get ready for this one. But we always start with the Battlegrounds overview. How was your week, Shady?
Great week, to be honest. Got my third account on 14k, so an AEU and then another one on EU. Just feel super comfortable with the game, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, get ready for that shakeout, right? But
it's like, I hope they don't mess it up because I'm really enjoying the game right now, but we'll see.
I got a secret for you. They always mess it up.
I've heard stories about the genie meta. I was like, oh god, I don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, so get ready for a little bit of a hectic gameplay for the first month or so, and maybe they'll change things up and start adjusting to fit what we're used to. But it's going to be interesting either way. So I've been doing all right, playing everything really, and having a little bit of fun. I've been waiting for this patch, so I'm pretty excited that they're finally releasing it. I normally don't get hyped normally about these things. I'm like, just fix the death trial stuff. But honestly, I've been feeling, hey, I want to see the new stuff. So I'm definitely excited myself just to see all the things, all the changes, and just kind of talk about it with you over here. So that's going to be our weekly overview. Next thing we're talking about is we've got a tournament coming up. Ooh, we've got a Mooncorn tournament. Nicolini's been doing these every week, and this week she has an invitational. We've been invited. Me and Shady are going to both be playing, as well as some of your other favorite streamers. That's including us as favorite streamers. We've got favorite streamers, and we're also playing. So it's going to be on the 2nd of May. So I think that's this Sunday. So definitely check it out. A lot of great players, right? I didn't know it was going to be so stacked when I agreed to play. Like the last tournament, I was like, oh, this is free money. Here I'm looking at the competition. I'm like, this isn't that free. So it's gonna be an interesting one. We'll see what we can do. Another interesting thing is it's gonna be right before the patch actually releases. So this is probably gonna be the last tournament of this particular meta. So you're gonna see a lot of people doing pulling out all the stops, right? Because there's nothing else to hide, right? You're like, I'm not saving anything for like the next meta, right? This is gonna be the last tournament of this meta. So definitely come out, take a look and see how it ends up.
It'll be the first time I play against you in a BG tournament.
We're technically in separate brackets. I will say that, right? So we have to make it to the finals, right? Just
I was sitting there. First, make it to the final, boy. Make it to the final. Let's talk about facing me. Right?
I'm just
saying. It's gonna be a good podcast. It's gonna be a good podcast.
I'm just saying, first you gotta make it to the finals, me and you. So, but if all things go well, then yeah, we'll see how that goes, for sure. So it's gonna be interesting. Next thing we've got the patch notes 20.2 released. This is the butter of this patch, the butter of this podcast. This is what we're going to be spending a majority of our time talking about. There's a lot of good stuff here, a lot of interesting changes to the meta, to the systems and stuff like that. So, just it's coming out. Another thing, right? The patch notes were released today, but it's coming out next week. So, I was initially thinking it was coming out today. That was what I initially thought. I was like, oh my god, I only have a day. Everything's gonna change, and then I find out, oh, it's next week. I got a week to breathe. So, it's that's something to keep in mind, right? When patch notes gets released, right? Usually, or before they would basically released the patch notes as soon as they're making the changes. Now they've kind of switched things up where they release the patch notes a little bit earlier, which I do like, right? So you know a little bit more to expect, and it doesn't like blindside you, right? You're like playing a day and like there's a new hero and you're like, what the hell is this? And you're just like, I gotta learn everything, right? Here you have some time to like theorize, craft, kind of look at the changes, see what looks broken, what doesn't, and then be a little bit more relaxed when you get into the new expansion and the new changes. So I like this adjustment.
I like it too. I really like that we can look at all the cards and you have that moment where it's like, oh, I'm gonna play like this, I'm gonna play like this, and then the patch hits and it's nothing like you imagined, but still, you've done some prep work, right?
Yeah, for sure. It never is exactly how you think it's gonna go in your mind, but it's nice to have an idea of what you think you're gonna do. So that is definitely true. Another update, right, with the patch, MMR is getting reset right after the update. So a lot of you guys who always are like, oh, it's hard to climb, things like that. I'm hoping this reset will be a little bit more balanced. In like the last reset, a lot of people had their MMR back in like 2 weeks, I would say, maybe a week and a half. You basically had your MMR back, and it didn't necessarily feel like you lost your MMR, in that you play for a week and a half, and you were back right there. And the people that were like at 8K stayed at 8K, right? But if you're at 13K, you kind of jump back, right? I'm hoping it'll be more of a bridge where the people at like 13K will still have to climb a little bit, where the people at 8K can also like catch up, right? Because it didn't feel like you actually it didn't feel like a reset, to be honest, right? It just felt like a roadblock where in a week back, the MMR is back to the same, right? Nothing really changed, right? You had some people that were able to kind of abuse the system and like jump really high, but except for those like outliers, it didn't really feel like any MMR change. So I think they said that this one was going to be a little bit more tame, and that everyone is going to be a little bit more equal. If you reach a certain rank, right, you'll be next year. I think you had a little bit more to say about the MMR reset, Shady. You said there was more.
No, I was just looking at the Twitter post that said that there would be rating floors and protection so that people can't tank their MMR a lot, the internal one, and then have the external one just pile up like they did before.
Okay, so there's
that's good news.
There still will be floors. Is that what they said?
Yeah, they said they're planning to add rating floors and protection zone with an algorithm update to prevent what people did before, when they tanked really low, but then the internal MMR didn't get hit as hard. And then I don't know exactly how it worked, or the internal MMR got hit really hard and then the external did not. But people were able to do something, right, where they were able to climb really high.
Because I know the system. So
yeah,
what happened? There used to be floors. So you hit a floor and you couldn't go below the floor, right? So it wouldn't adjust your visible MMR, but it would adjust your hidden MMR. So what you would do is you would drop your hidden MMR super low. So your hidden MMR would be super, super low, but your visible MMR would still be the same. But then when you start playing, right, you're like way lower than everyone else you're playing in the lobby, right? So when you win that game, you're like, wow, you beat people, 6,000 MMR below you. Let's give you 300. Oh, wow. And then that just goes to your visible MMR. So you're like at 9,000 with a hidden MMR of like 3K, and you're just destroying people, and you're gaining 300 points every time, and so people were hitting like 1,500, 1,600 just very easily because you're able to climb super fast. Where the people that were playing regular, right, you win a first place, they were getting like 50 points, 60 points, right? It's a lot harder to climb. Where the other guys are getting 100 points, getting 150 points for a win, right? How are you gonna compete with that? So hopefully they deal with that abuse case and make sure that people are climbing a little bit more.
Yep.
Fairly.
Well, that seems to be the case. At least that there's going to be protection for that this time.
Yeah, hopefully. But sometimes they introduce a new thing and then people abuse that. Blizzard doesn't necessarily catch everything all the time. So
feature.
Yeah, hopefully it's a little bit better this time. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I always like seeing people trying to climb again after MMR Reset, especially when the game changes, right? Sometimes you're really good at one patch but not good at another, right? So it is more of a showcase of how you're doing this patch, right? So always nice to see. Next thing, we've got Battlegrounds coin supports for the people that played Constructed sometimes and got the coins or bought the coins. I don't know how you get these coins. I have none of these coins, but some people do. And if you do, you can change your coins to these coins. I don't have any of these coins. I have no... This doesn't affect me whatsoever, so I'm not really enthusiastic. But some people care. And hey, for those people, coin support. I love to see it. What about you?
I think that at least one of them was just playing a lot and reaching a certain level in the experience track. But yeah, this is not what I read patch notes for whatsoever.
But coin support, chat. Coin support, it's huge.
Huge.
We love to see it, or whatever. Anyways, yeah. But that's just a follow up. That's not really what's important. That's not really what we're going to be talking about. For most of it, we're really going to be talking about the Quilboar patch 20.2. This is a big change. Kind of reminds me of Dragon patch, that kind of thing, where a lot of new heroes being added, not new minions being added, a minion types being added. Another thing to mention is that now, since Quilboars will be in, 3 minion types will be gone every game. Quilboars will always be in until the next update, and 3 will be out. So you're gonna be seeing a lot less, dragons, murlocs, elementals, beasts, all of those, right? Because 3 of them will be out every game. So that's gonna be something you're gonna have to get used to. I would say, right? It's not it's not something you'll notice too much until you play a lot and you're like, I'm seeing less mechs, I'm seeing less murlocs, and I'm in Quilboars in every single game. So the game's gonna be fundamentally different because you're gonna be seeing Quilboars every game, and you're not gonna be seeing what you know how to play every single time. So that in itself is a big change. Even without talking about any of the new cards, any of the new heroes, that in itself is a big change. So definitely be aware of that. But we can get started. We're gonna start with the heroes. Actually, we're gonna start with the mechanic first, right? We're gonna start with blood gems. This is the new mechanic in this patch. It's a spell, so similar to coins, right, where you can keep these in your hand and things like that. It's a spell, 0 mana, very coin-like, right? It gives a friendly minion +1/+1. Now, Shady, without really looking at the other synergies and stuff like that, what do you think about this mechanic? What do you think about it?
That's a banana, right? Pretty much. We have this mechanic, right? It wouldn't do anything else. So.
It's a blood banana. You're right, actually.
Blood banana.
That is so true. Yeah, so what do you think about bananas? What do you think about blood gems?
Well, I love playing Mukla, so
We're banana, we're blood
Mukla every single game, Pog you.
Pretty much, right? You'll have a Mukla in every game now. I personally think this is an interesting mechanic. Could be broken, right? Just being able to stack cleaves and divine shield minions are really strong, right? So I think this is going to increase the value of those type of minions. They were already super valuable before, right? But now, you remember we recently had a discussion about Cave Hydra, and we were like, oh, it's bait, most of the time, right? Imagine 2 weeks later we're talking about the same card. And we're like, dude, pick Hydra every time. You can easily buff
Snap
it
it,
with
dude.
blood gems, right? And you're just
Go
like,
for it.
how different of a mentality, right? This, mechanic can change with the value of cards and things like that. So I do think this is going to shake things up. It's going to be especially powerful for Cleaves and Divine Shield minions and things similar to that mechanic. So, this is just a mechanic, right? Without knowing the heroes, without knowing the minions, it doesn't mean anything, right? You could have this mechanic. It's frenzies on one card before, right? Who cares? It's not. I mean, it was important because it was pretty game deciding, but it doesn't really showcase what the full extent of it until you add in all the synergies, you add in all the hero abilities, and then you really talk about it. We might want to talk about this card at the end and see how it feels, right? After talking about it at the beginning. But let's move on to the first hero in the patch. I'm gonna butcher all these names. Just gonna start with that. Please be aware. Death Speaker Blackhorn. Oh, Blackthorn. Death Speaker.
There you go. You got it. Yeah.
Yes, it is 4 different words. I can say them individually. Bloodbound, passive hero power. After you upgrade Bob's Tavern, gain 2 blood gems. So that's pretty interesting. So I like passive hero powers just because you don't pay for them, right? You can do what you're gonna do normally, and then you get an extra value on top of it, right? It's a little bit different where some hero powers require like late game activation, right? This one doesn't require late game activation, and it's pretty free.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, could I please finish?
I'm finished. You can talk about
it. Well, I think that he's pretty much just Kale in a lot of respects.
K-Toss, right? Yeah. That's I agree.
So I don't think we need to look too much at him where it's just like, okay, it's Kale and it's better than Kale if you have things where you get more value out of your blood gems than +1/+1. Because obviously some minions are gonna interact favorably with them. So but assuming that you're not hitting any blood gem synergies, then it's pretty much just Kale where you get to be a little bit less restricted with where you want buffs to go, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's Kale in the worst case scenario, which is pretty okay, right? But in best case scenarios, we haven't talked about the minions and stuff, but there's a lot of minions that do really well with blood gem activations. Sure. So and you get it while you're leveling, so it's very easy to just like, oh, buy a blood gem synergy card, and then level, okay, put the blood gems in. Oh, now I'm getting so much more value out of it, and Quilboars will be in every game, so you'll be able to get these activations pretty much every game. And there's other ways to generate blood gems, and it kind of is going to be probably the quintessential blood gem hero, where you're going to get some blood gems for free, right? Without really having to go out of your way of getting blood gem synergy, and then being able to utilize that, especially in the early game, in the mid game, and things like that. So I do think it has a lot of potential. Definitely seems stronger than KT, just because of its flexibility and its potential upside, right? So it has that KT baseline, but it's baseline and up from there. So I do think this is going to be played. I do think this is going to be a good hero that people enjoy until something busted comes out and people are like, you could just do Jandis blood gems or something like that. Yeah.
Now I was looking at Jandis, I was like, less games with Murlocs and Beasts, and like, no.
Yeah, but now you got blood gem synergy, so it's fine. Probably. I have no idea. I have no idea, right? But yeah, this is gonna be an interesting hero. I think it's gonna be played, and I think it might be very good. I could see it be between above average to very good. Is gonna be my initial rating. You have any?
Yeah, playable for sure, and then depending on how pretty much how it feels, right? The blood gems early, it can go from just playable to nice, like Lich King-ish, where you're like, solid upside, right? Where you just you when you pick a Lich King, that the hero powers is gonna do well, and with Quilboars in every single game, It's I don't know. Like it could be a thing where it's more like a patches thing where like, all right, where's the Quilboars? Where's the Quilboars? Where's my pirates? But at the very least, right, you're gonna have that KT baseline. So yeah, I think overall super decent.
Yeah. All right. So next hero we're talking about is Vol'jin. If you've played a little bit of Constructed or anything, you know what this guy does. He swaps minions. I had this happen to me yesterday, where my opponent swapped my taunt and killed me. But hey, he's keeping his thematic ability. You're getting the ability to choose 2 minions, swap their stats. This is very interesting. I assume you're able to swap minions from Bob's Tavern, minions from your tavern, willy-nilly, right? I don't think there's gonna be like a limiter where you can't touch Bob's minions, or you can't touch your own minions, or you have to like they have to stay between your minions or stay between Bob's minions or anything like that. I think it's just like free.
You know, I have no idea.
You have no
I'm gonna be
idea.
honest.
And
I'm also
probably
just thinking, well, how does the interface work, right? You just tap it, and then you just like
you tap it,
tap
you
one,
pick a
tap
minion,
two.
and you pick another minion. And
Okay.
that works. Yeah. But if it's working the way I'm imagining, where it's free targeting, you could 0 mana, you can pick anything you want. Pretty crazy, because there's a lot of stuff that you can abuse. You know, the one that jumps out to me is Battlemaster with poison. You know, like just like let's just have a Battlemaster, and then let's just copy, make a Murloc poison, and then put Battlemaster stats on it, and just like, yeah, I have a 330 poison. Like, okay. Like, come on. Another thing you can do is, you can buff up your brands and things like that, right? You can and just have like a big boy, a big brand, right? Big barons, right? Things like that. Minions that don't have good stats but are really, really valuable, you can just now give them a little bit of stats pretty freely and use that as a way. This one seems more of a complicated hero, like a hero that you kind of have to think about how to use it correctly. But I do think there's potential cheese cases for sure, and then just general upside if you can target things and especially abusing things with Death Rattle. Death Rattles usually don't have the best stats, but if you can like just get like a 5/5 Death Rattle initially or something like that, so I think there's definitely upside. And this hero is gonna lean more Menagerie, I'm assuming, just because you want to abuse, swapping like a weak minion with a strong like Battlemaster or a strong like Agamaggan, and give them those stats. I really think Battlemaster is like the real
the
abuse
real
case.
cheese.
Yeah, the real cheese.
Sure.
Right. Everything else is a little bit harder to execute. Where if you have a brand Battlemaster and then make it poison, right? Like that's gonna get you so far. But other than like, so I think if demons are in and Murlocs are in, you might want to try this hero. But the other cases are going to be a little bit hard. Another thing to think about is, right, we are having the blood jump mechanic, so you will be able to buff things and then swap later, right? So let's say you're buffing, your 1-drop, right, and then then you find the cleave, then you're like, okay, swap the cleave with the 1-drop stats by the cleave. Now I have a 20 cleave since I was buffing my 1-drop in the beginning. Now I don't need it anymore. Now I have a gigantic cleave, and then I go from there, right? So there's that if you're thinking about the blood gem mechanic that you can utilize to abuse, but that that isn't consistent and is kind of hard to guarantee, especially you don't get free blood gems, so it's not as viable as maybe the other guy. But it does seem like it's an interesting mechanic. It's hard to guess how strong it will be. I could see it being abusable. You also see it being hard to play and tough to do.
It's a hero that you're gonna need to get off the ground at the start, but I think once you do, the main appeal for me is just you can just store stats somewhere and then just cash in later. So let's say a lot of the time you make a huge Wrathweaver and you're like, yeah, I have this Wrathweaver on my board. Right? But you're just like, ooh, shield, bonk, all the stats from the Wrathweaver onto the shield or onto the Hydra. And like you mentioned, it means that you do not have to think too much about where you're putting your blood gems. Just, put them on a thing and then cash in later. So that's probably the main appeal for this hero for me, is that you don't have to hold back. You can just have Sensei buff a clunker, right? And then later on, found a deflecto.
Yeah,
Clunker stats onto the deflecto, those kind of things.
yeah, you're reminding me of like sometimes you're playing like Lightfang scaling, Menagerie scaling, and you're buffing like some random. You're buffing what's it called, a water droplet or something, right?
Yeah.
Then you find the divine shield, elemental, and you're like, I have a 2020 water droplet. I don't want to switch it. Here you're just like, oh yes, let's go swap in instantly. I've got a 2020 divine shield, Wind Fury minion, and then you're good to go, right? So it really makes Lightfang a little bit more freeing, Menagerie a little bit more freeing, because you can buff whatever, and then as soon as you find the key piece, the key cleave, the key divine shield, you just swap them in and you're good to go. Water droplet, it's okay, but divine shield, water droplet, let's go. That kind of thing. So,
yeah. The main struggle with this hero, right? It's like you mentioned, if they can swap stats from the store, then sure, you can upgrade your board for free. That's my cat. One second. So being able to upgrade your board for free is going to help them survive. But if that's not the case, where you can just only manipulate stats on your board, you might not really have too good of a hero power until you get going. And then it's kind of like in Cat's case, where, it doesn't really matter how good your hero power is later on if it doesn't really do anything early, because then you're going to die.
yeah.
So I guess it depends a little bit whether you can manipulate your board from the shop and just say, I can turn my token into something big here. Boom. I'm going to have some tempo. I'm going to be able to level. I'm going to be able to hold a pair and then hit my pair, got my triple. And then here's a Lightfang. Because once you've got the Lightfang, this guy's going to be super solid.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like that because it doesn't say like choose two friendly minions or anything like that, right? It's very freeing in the description. Just choose two minions. Ooh, like if you could see your opponent's board, at times you could just take your opponent's minions. That's how I look at this card, right? If you had a way of
hold it right there, dude. Hold it right there.
just choose two. It doesn't matter where the
minions are. Change now,
damn, dude, that would be so. I would be so mad if they could take my stats. Oh my god, they give me a 1/1 spore. Oh my god, I'd be so mad. But hopefully it's not like that. So I'm hoping you can just choose any minions in Tavern or your board and swap them. And if that is the case, I think this has some viability. I do think it's gonna struggle initially just because it looks to be a little bit more complicated than some of the other, like whoop da blood gems everywhere, I win. It looks like you have to think about it. So I think it's gonna look bad initially in the stats, but then the dedicated players, the people who are practicing, are gonna find a way to abuse this, and then it's gonna be like, maybe a month, 2 months top hero. So that's just my my guess in terms of, like, it always feels like the complicated Jandice was the same way, where you started with Jandice, people were like, this is weird. And then, a little bit later, people start figuring out, then bam, top best, one of the best heroes. Like, it feels like you could do this initially, because 0 mana hero powers, I think, are so strong, just because it's so value every turn without any drawback, where you can be flexible, you can adjust, you can react to things. So I do think just it being 0 mana, it having a flexible ability, it might have some potential. So I don't think it's going to be great off the bat. I think it's going to require a little bit of thought process, a little bit of a game plan, a little bit of maybe the right minion type setups, right, with Battle Master and Murlocs and things like that. It might need a setup, but if you can get it, and if you are comfortable with those setups, and you do it every time, this could be a really, really strong hero. So we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah,
but
great potential.
Yeah, potential is there. Next thing we shall talk about is Xyrella, something like that.
I would say Xyrella.
Okay. See the lights. Hero power, choose a minion in Bob's Tavern to add to your hand, set its stats to 2. So I'm assuming that the stats are going to be a 2/2, right? That's my...
Yeah, that would be my guess for sure.
So this kind of reminds me of Yogg, I guess. Is the easy
Yogg,
way.
yeah,
it's the non-random Yogg, but you got 2/2 every time instead of +1/+1 buff. I have no idea. I have no idea. Yogg is my most played, right? So I've got that, I've got that Yogg experience. But the 1/1 really matters, but not being random is also really powerful, right? So you could maybe do Yogg curve. The one issue is that you're really gonna need like you're gonna have to be targeting scaling units or units with like death rattles and stuff like that to stay relevant or stay strong, right? Because a 2/2 stat line, especially past turn, I mean Tavern 1, right? Like everything is stronger than a 2/2 stat line. So you gotta be picking up like light fangs, you gotta be picking up senseis, you gotta be picking up things with battle cries or death rattles, right? To really take advantage of it. But I do think that the fact that it's Yogg without the RNG, right? If you can still do the Yogg leveling curve and be healthy, that's gonna be really powerful, right? So it really, I do think the blood gems might matter a lot, right? Because if you're targeting things with blood gems, then at least you can make it the 3/3 and you can target things that generate blood gems every turn. So it's not gonna feel as bad even though you're starting with a 2/2. If the card generates a blood gem every turn, right? It's a 2/2, but it's a 3/3, it's a 4/4, it's a 5/5, right? There's a lot of stat manipulation with this patch, with these expansions. So that might be the saving grace for this, where you can target all the blood gem minions and you can still manipulate their stats. Even though it starts as a 2/2, you can quickly get like a 5/5, a 6/6, and then it doesn't feel as bad while you're leveling. So that might, like, we haven't talked about any of the minions, but the minions might be the saving grace, where even though the stat starts bad, you can quickly ramp up because you're able to target whatever minion you want and then go from there. So I once again, I think this minion has potential. This might be the weaker one, honestly, but I don't know, right? It depends how much good targets there are while you're leveling. If you are gonna go for the Yogg leveling, which I think is gonna be common, just because a lot of people are very used to leveling, and if you can get to the late game, right, if you can hit Light Fang, right, if you can brand, it doesn't matter that it's a 2/2. So you want to be getting early, you want to be leveling early so you can target those scaling minions that don't really care that their stats are weak initially. So
yeah, there's a couple of hits, right? You can get your sensei, you can get your rat pack. Even a deflecto is like, sure, 1 gold discount for a 2/2. Depends a bit, right? If you can buy it immediately with a clunker or a sensei, you don't really care, I guess. Bronze Warden as a 2/2. Pretty good. So there's definitely, I think it's one of those heroes where you can just have this game where you look at the tavern and you're like, Bob, really? You just didn't get anything, right? Like, it's just all strictly worse. But then you're still getting it cheaper. So I don't think it's ever going to be trash, like complete trash, but I'm not currently seeing it being top tier.
What do you think about? You think it might be better than Yogg or worse than Yogg? That's my
depends where we value Yogg right now, right? I'm not a huge fan of Yogg at the moment.
I still like Yogg. I mean, so I used to like always pick Yogg. That was like a long time ago, right? But now there's like, I have like 6 or 7 heroes where I would just like snap it over Yogg. So it went down for me, but it's still like, it's still above average, or at least maybe near average in terms of like my ranking. So
so where are we at? Like, are we like Alakir Lich King or like lower?
Alakir,
I think those are good baseline, right? We're like, yeah, good hero, but not like broken.
Yogg or Alec here? That's a good question. That one kind of depends on if beasts are available, right? If beasts are available, then it's always Alec here, Lich King. If there's no beast, then it's more of a argument, but I still probably would lean Alec here still. But it's somewhat close.
But it's close-ish.
Yeah, it's
okay.
close.
Yeah, Yogg is worse for me. I don't like Yogg.
I know a lot of people don't like the Yogg.
That's fair. That's fair.
They don't like the RNG, but Yogg, give it. Yogg, take it away, dude. Some of my best games have been just Yogg giving me everything I need.
Yogg not taking it away, just giving it.
I remember those games where I hero powered Yogg, and Yogg gives me what I don't want, and then like 2 turns later, I'm like, oh my god, it's so good here. Like, you know, like it ends up being better than what I wanted. You know, I've had a couple of games like that. I'm just like, Yogg knew what I needed. You know, I didn't know what I needed. But yeah, you know, those are pretty rare. So I'm not gonna say, oh, just play Yogg, that'll happen to you. But you know, you play 1,000 games of Yogg, that happens like once or twice. Anyways, I think it's gonna be interesting hero. It kind of depends on how strong the blood gems are, how strong the blood gem minions are, and there's still a decent amount of good targets. Dragons have good targets. Light Fang's good target. Brand's good target. You know, Sensei's good target. So anything with scaling, anything that you can pick up, and you're getting a minion for 2 instead of 3, right? So token minions are free, that kind of thing, right? You still have that ability to just bank gold, right? That's something you want to keep in mind, right? You can always target elementals and just bank the gold, right? So that is pretty useful sometimes. So I do that with Yogg.
Yeah. I think for me, I would probably compare it a bit more with Yashiraj, where you're the way how it works at the beginning, but then at the end, Yashiraj gets that, oh, let me just go up and get a 6-drop guaranteed. That's the 6-drop and the 5-drop is not the thing you're getting. But I think the early game feels a bit more like Yashiraj than like Yogg.
Well, the thing with like, Yashiraj is you can like level hero power. You can't do that with this hero.
Sure. I think you're usually not. I guess the turn I'm looking at is the 8 gold turn with Yashiraj, where you double buy, sell a token hero power. Like, just thinking those turns, it's because you're taking more things out of the shop. It's more likely that you're just going to be able to, oh yeah, sure, and I don't mind this being a 2/2.
I'm looking at it like a Yogg because in Yashiraj you have a lot of turns where you like level hero power, right? And then you get a 4-drop or something, right? Here with Yogg, you're always like level hero power, you get a 3.
You have a Yogg as well already.
Yeah, so that's why I look at more.
I guess what I'm trying to say is it feels like the early game on Yashiraj feels a bit weaker than Yogg, and that's why I said like it feels like it's going to be a bit weaker as well, where it matches that where Yogg is more dominant early because you're getting that +1/+1. Yeah, and then later on it starts to feel a bit more Yoggy.
I don't think the hero is going to be dominant early, like at all. No. Stats to 2/2. I'm assuming it makes it a 2/2. Like, so it's going to have 2 attack, 2 health if it doesn't, if it's not clear, which is it's not necessarily clear in the description. So I think that's a valid question there. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know about this hero. Maybe after we see a lot of the minions, we'll be a little bit more, you know, confident. But right now, I'm not too sure. So let's take a look. You know, Rat King got changed. I was gonna skip this, but I was like, you know what? You know, let's not be mean to Rat King. You're getting Quilboars added to the pool. Hey, good for you, Rat King. You know, not that a lot of people cared or picked Rat King, but hey, you're adjusted. You're changed. We're gonna mention you. You're in the patch. You know, welcome. But yeah, I don't think it's going to do that much to Rat King. You know, sometimes you pick it up and hope you get lucky, but most of the time you're not super happy that you picked this up. This used to be one of my favorite heroes back in the day when Agamaggan was like a 2-drop, where you always got the buff whenever you picked Agamaggan. But nowadays that doesn't really happen. It's not as consistent. So, you know, Rat King, whatever. That's sorry, but yeah, that's kind of how we go. Anyways,
King no more.
Yeah. All right, let's start talking about the minions. The minions. This is the minions you're gonna see every single game. You're not gonna get all the each hero every single game, but you're gonna see these minions every single game. They're probably more important than the heroes, to be honest. But these are what you're gonna be looking at, seeing if you're gonna be picking up and going and committing to Blood Gem Quilboar strategy. First one, Razorfen Geomancer battlecry, gain a Blood Gem, 1 mana 3/1 Quilboar. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the Blood Gem units, it's nice to compare them like, okay, let's just add the Blood Gem to its stat line and then see if I like it, right? That's probably the easiest way to compare. And then you got a 1 mana 4/2, which is playable, right? Like that's not like you deal 4 damage, so it trades with Homunculus. It runs into Acolyte, which is a bit annoying, right? But overall, this doesn't feel like it's like, oh, another like unplayable 1-drop in the shop at all.
Yeah, it feels playable. So yeah, the 4/2 beats the 2/4 demon, but it loses to Acolyte, it loses to Murloc, it loses to it's just those two, right? Like, or is there?
Well, I think the real value here is like, oh, I buy this and then I put
you hold the Blood Gem,
right, or something, and then I have a 2/3 micro mummy, and that's obviously a lot better than a 1/2. So I think that's where the main appeal comes from, to buff something else other than itself.
Yeah, for sure. You might be picking these up like for Blood Gem synergies later on as well, right? Like just like, oh, if my Blood Gems are +4/+4, well, this is pretty good here, right? Like, so there might be reasons to pick this card later on just to get a Blood Gem. Like, it might be just a powerful effect. It's going to be a 1-cost tavern, so you're going to see a lot of these in the shop. So I definitely think you'll see play, right? It's not going to be a card that's getting ignored.
Yes. I think it's more a card you play later, like you said. I don't think it's that early game of a card. It's more like, oh, I've got my engine running. Ooh, snap by every Geomancer I see.
Alright, so next card we're taking a look at is Sun Bacon Relaxer. Sun Bacon. Ever had bacon in the sun? All right.
Most likely at some point.
Yeah, just put some bacon in the sun, let it fry. Just like, yeah, have a Quilboar. Anyways, when you sell this card, it's a 1 mana tavern, 1/2. One attack, 2 health, Quilboar. When you sell this, gain 2 Blood Gems. Interesting card. Kind of reminds me of the previous card, but you get 2 Blood Gems, right? You're just gonna buy it, sell it, get 2 instead of the 1, right? So not a card you want early. It loses to everything. It dies to everything. But once you get your engine going, it's a 2 mana +2/+2, like generically, like so the what are they called?
Clunker, Houndmaster.
Yeah, Clunker, Houndmaster, all those cards that you buy to buff your Cleaves and your Divine Shield minions. This does it for you. 2 mana. I mean, 2 mana +2/+2. This has no drawback. You don't have to target a specific minion type. It just hits anything you want. And it's also flexible. You can do +1 here, +1 there. So definitely a much, unless you have a brand, it's a much better buffing engine.
Well, there is a downside, right? Where, let's say it's you have 6 gold left and there's Houndmaster +X in the shop. You can just buy. This one, you're like, I gotta buy it, I gotta sell it, and I'm floating a gold. So I don't mean to say that that's always a downside, right? But I think it's more something where, oh, the gold lines up. Oh, that's cool, I can do that. But you can't flip the body and get the buff at the same time.
True. Right, you don't get the body and the buff. That's true.
Yeah.
But the body's trash, so who cares?
Well, it's more like the gold it carried, right? Yeah. Like, you can carry this gold into the next turn.
Yeah,
but I can see this like on 5 gold if you didn't hit a token, and this is in the shop, and like, oh, buy it, sell it, 2 Blood Gems, and then I can just buy something.
Dude, KT is gonna feel so bad after this patch. You're just like, dude,
Things getting +2/+2, man.
Yeah,
People lined up to see me give things +2/+2.
Yeah, but I do think this is going to be a very played card just because we haven't talked about Blood Gem synergy, right? And yeah, at all. And this already gives you 2 Blood Gems, and there's a lot of synergy with Blood Gems. And if you can get these consistently, get a lot of Blood Gems easily, you can really get a lot of value from Blood Gems. So I do think it's going to be played. This is not a card you want early, and it's a card you have to manipulate your gold advantage to make it, you know, clean, right? Some people don't care about clean gold, right? I do a lot, so I tend to like make sure I have 0 gold left and things like that. But if the value of the Blood Gems is just like so much better than like keeping an extra gold, then you know you might still just do it anyway. So interesting card, definitely going to be seeing play. You don't want to pick it up early, but once you start having an engine, once you start having buff targets, this is going to be picked up for sure. Okay, next topic, we've got RoadBoar. RoadBoar. You know, it's a frenzy card. So our next frenzy, so they are committing to the frenzy archetype. So that's, you know, Shade, I don't know if you like frenzies, you don't like the previous one, but here's another one.
I think this is the perfect example, right? Like,
of a good
like
frenzy?
Yeah, it's like, oh, my guy lived. Nice, I get +1/+1 on something next turn. Not like, oh, my guy lived. This guy's taking 18 damage. Nice, right? It's just, it's a little different. It's a little different. I think this is fine. Like, it's a feel good frenzy thing. We're like, oh, nice. Little something. Nice. I get +1/+1 on my guy.
Yeah, okay.
Not like that. Oh, he's taking 18. That's great.
This one's a little bit more, you know, justifiable. This has a shady approval. All right. So it's a 2 mana, 2/4 Quilboar with frenzy, gain a blood gem. So it's a 2/4, 4 health. So early game, that's pretty tanky, right? But once you pass, you know, early game, not tanky. However, blood gems are in the game, so you will be able to buff it up and continue getting blood gems. So there is that upside. You can buff it with the blood gems to make sure that you have a higher chance of getting those buffs. And it's a decent engine. You get +1/+1 every turn if it works. So it will be seeing play for sure. There's definitely a lot of minions that are like have this stat line or worse stat line on 2. So you're gonna at least turn 3, you're gonna assume you're gonna get the frenzy hit. You know, turn 4, you're probably gonna still get the hit. Turn 5, you know, turn 6, then if you're not buffing it with your blood gems, then it's a little bit more.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're probably, I think a lot of the time people are gonna want to invest in this thing, right? They're like, oh, it made a gem, let's make a tank here. Oh, it survived again, let's make a tank. I think this is gonna be an amazing pair and a really fun golden. I think there's a really feel good vibe to it when you have a pair and you've been putting like the 1 blood gem you've gained every time on each of them, and then you triple it and you're like, boom, 15 health guy, let's go, right? And you're just farming 2 blood gems every round.
Yeah, it almost, it'll have that sensei vibe, right? Where you with stats though, it's not like trash. Where
right?
Yeah. So I do think this is gonna be one of the more common 2-drops that people start playing, just because it has, people love. Okay, let me speak for myself. I love when I can get stats for free. Oh, give me those stats for free. Let's go. So this is definitely my wheelhouse. Just buff it up, get free stats every turn, and just go from there. So definitely think I'll be picking this up, seeing how valuable it works, and I expect to see these in my games once it comes out. Next, minion Tough Tusk. It's a 2 mana 4/3 ability. After a blood gem is played on this card, on this minion, you gain divine shield for the next combat. So if you don't have a blood gem, it's just a 4/3, a 2 mana 4/3 if you don't have a blood gem, which, you know, that's pretty good, right? Like a 2 mana 4/3 is pretty okay. But then you put a blood gem on it, it's a 2 mana 5/4 divine shield. It's it's freaking deflect. No, what's the other card? It's Cobalt. It's a Cobalt Guardian basically. It's just missing an attack. You know, like
it was a 6/3, right?
it's a 6/3. Yeah, but it's a 5/4, so you know it balances out. Yeah,
I would prefer a 5/4, I think, because the 4 HP makes it more likely that you get the bop with the shield, then you get the value trait, then you get the 5/1.
Yeah. So 2 mana Kobold Guardian if you have a blood gem, and that's in this meta, blood gems are probably going to be pretty common. The one issue is you have to give it a blood gem every turn, right? It's hungry. It's it's a hack. I need my blood gems. Where are my blood gems? Give it to me, So you have to keep feeding this guy, right? But if you keep
already see those scenarios, man, where you have your reasonable early game, but then somebody opened, let's say on 5 gold, they opened the RoadBoar thing, right? So they got the blood gem ready. And then they opened one of these, and then you phase them on 6 gold, and you're like, hey, 5/4 divine shield, 6 gold. And you're just like, oh, I have regular units. I'm sorry. This is not what I had planned. So yeah, I can definitely see this card like running over people early. This feels and the thing with these cards are the cards that you don't mind picking up when the effect isn't there. That's kind of dangerous when the effect is really good when you can't off, right? Because a lot of the blood gem cards kind of keep themselves going, where we talked about the RoadBoar thing that gives a blood gem, and there's a couple other cards that can create a steady flow of blood gems. So I don't think it's going to be like, oh, this is like a meta breaking card. It's in every comp all the time.
You're speaking too soon.
Well, okay. So the way how I look at this card is you pick it up early, and people have no defense against it, where you hit with the blood gem and it's really strong. But then later on, sure, it's strong, but you could have also just had a divine shield that you were pumping with those blood gems, right? So it's later in the game, it's not suddenly this like, oh my god, this is insane, you have a minion with divine shield. No, that's more like, okay, people have minions with divine shields at that point, but it's the 5 gold, 6 gold, 7 gold turns where that shouldn't be happening, right? Your opponent shouldn't be having a 5/4, or the turn after that a 6 or was a 6/5 divine shield. Like that shouldn't be happening. So I think it's more those early game turns where it's 5, 6, 7 gold where you're really going to get caught off guard. It's like, oof, that's a big boy. What the hell? Okay, 100% loss. Nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, that is my issue, in that early game people are gonna have this, and then they're not gonna lose, and it's gonna create a safe mid game for them, right, where they can invest and get stronger, and you have the cards that give you more than one blood gem, right? So you'll pump this every turn, and then late game, right, this thing's gonna have 10 attack. It's gonna be a 10/9, right? It's still gonna be good, right? Like it doesn't fall off. That's like the issue. You pick it up early and it doesn't fall off the whole game. You just pump a blood gem every turn, and there are abilities where you can get blood gems, on all your minions for free.
That's also if you get the golden version, it won't require the blood gem every turn. It'll just
really?
Be shielded. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen the golden version of this card. Wait, let me take a quick look at that. The golden version doesn't require blood gems?
Well, it says after a blood gem is played on this card, gain divine shield. The common one states gain divine shield for the next combat. So the implication is that the shield stays after.
Oh, wow.
So then it's no longer hung. But I guess the irony is, if you're investing that much in that comp, that you're probably gonna be able to get a blood gem every turn. But I mean, it's a hassle out of the way, right? You can.
Yeah, that's good. Wow, that's actually a good golden ability. That's
if
rare.
you can get 2 of these early and then fuse them,
that's usually the golden abilities are pretty trash. I'm just gonna be Nadina just pops up, like why does this do nothing? So I'm surprised they have like an actual improvement in the card by making it golden. Yeah, sometimes goldens are traps, but okay. So it has that upside. If you could make it golden, then you don't require the blood gems anymore, and you can just have a good divine shield minion. So I'm scared of this card. That's going to be my assessment. I'm very scared of this one. I fear for it. I fear for
my
life.
initial take is that I'm gonna be cursing on this card early, where I'm just gonna throw my hands in the air. It's like, ah, he's got one of those. I guess we lose the fight. That was fun.
Yeah. It definitely feels like one of those directional minions, where if you get 2 copies, you get 1 copy. You can be like, okay, I'm gonna go blood jumps, like from, because I won't be losing my early game, and then I can just continue.
Yeah, well, the card alone isn't enough, right? But you would need something, right? I guess
the
most
card in the
time
engine. Okay, the card in the engine, right? Like,
yeah. So it's not like, oh, you hit this, you have the nuts early, but the
fair
very
enough.
specific case that people have,
because of my statement, you'll have people just running 2 tusks and no engine. And you're
I
like,
don't understand the podcast about the owning. What is this?
That is true. You need an engine as well. Let's just be clear, right? It's not just like, hey, this works. You need the engine. So if you've got the copy and the engine, then you're pretty much good to go. So yeah, definitely fearful card, especially if you have like the blood gem hero, right? Then you get the engine for free.
Oh, yeah.
So, scary as well.
And then you can just ration the gems, right? You don't need to use them on all.
Exactly. Yeah. Next minion will be Prophet of the Boar. 2 mana, 3/3. Once per turn, after you play a Quilboar, gain a blood gem. I know for a fact that the once per turn was added on later, just because that's how they designed stuff. They designed stuff. They're just like, once after you play a Quilboar, gain a blood gem. That was its initial ability. And then they play tested it, and they're like, huh, this is a little bit strong. It feels like that's how it worked there. So here you can see, play testing in action, them adjusting a card they think is busted. So it only happens once per turn. You get a blood gem. So as long as you're buying Quilboars, you get a blood gem every turn. The nice thing is you can get this early, right? So let's say you start token, then you sell this, you buy this, you buy another Quilboar, right? Then you get a blood gem for free, right? So you can start with this, and then you can start with tough Tusk, right? And then you just put it on the tough Tusk, and then you're pretty good, right? You have a 5/4 3/3 5/4 Divine Shield 3/3 and a token, right? So that's a really strong start. You probably beat most people unless they have their own Tusk. So can I just call it like, I don't know, some tough Tusk is gonna get super annoying.
I'm Tusky.
Tusky, yeah. Thank you. That's way better.
I'm
Yeah.
Tusky. There we go.
Yeah. Once you get Tusky, you're good to go, right? So
yeah, man. That's really Tusky's expansion.
So I think it's gonna be played, right? Especially on turn 3, if you get this and another Quilboar, right? It's gonna be pretty easy to just like get the free.
It's one of those combo things where you're like, it's pretty bad, and then you see the next thing. I was like, oh, it's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah, it reminds me of Party Elemental, right? Party Elemental, right? Where once you get an elemental, you get +1/+1. It's basically the same, right? It's just not. The only issue, it's limited to once per turn, but blood gems have so much more upside, right? There's so much more synergy with blood gems, whereas the elemental.
Yeah, it seems at least from Tusky, like all you need is one a turn at that point, at least, right?
Yeah. So I definitely think it's gonna be a played card. It's a synergy card, right? So you want to pick it up. And it's not a Quilboar itself. So I think that's a really important distinction. It's not a Quilboar itself. So you can't go profit, get two blood gems, right? And I think that's gonna hurt it a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean, a lot. So
for me, the card's not great. It's just one of those, at least, from what I can tell right now, right? Obviously with the potential, like, oh, it was too busted, we have to nerf it. Like from what I can tell right now, it's one of those cards where you don't really look at it. It's not like, ooh, I've got my profit secured, right? My profit's on the board. Now let me find the other pieces. It's more like, oh, I have this. Oh, the profit's actually kind of good, right? I'll just, play these together.
Like similar to the 6/3, right? The 6/3 elemental buffer, in a sense where sometimes you have elementals, you're like, it doesn't work that well because you're not really committing to elementals, right? You need to commit to elementals. Here, this one, you don't need a commit, but you do need to be picking up other Quilboars, right? It's not like you can pick up double profit and be like, okay, I'm good, right? If you pick up double profit, it doesn't do anything, right? You have to start playing the Quilboars before you get it. And also there's a limit, right? You can't get like 4 blood gems in a turn, right? You only get 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think it's justifiable to buy the minion if you buy a Quilboar at the same turn.
Yeah.
I think other than that, you probably don't want to pick it up unless, of course, the stats are the best.
Yeah, so doesn't seem crazy. It's not Tusky level, but it might see play, especially if you have synergy. So yeah.
Yeah, once you have an engine going later, of course, you can talk about it then, right?
All right.
All right.
Let me see. I believe our next card is Bristleback Brute. It is 3 mana 3/3 Quilboar with the ability the first blood gem played on this turn gives an extra +3/+3. So it's not on this minion. It's on this. Oh no, it is on this minion. The first blood gem played on this. So it is on this minion. So it's specific. You specifically need to give it to this minion. For a second there, I thought you could just give it to any minion and it would get +3/+3. But no, okay. So it has to target this minion. However, an extra +3/+3 basically means +4/+4, right? If I'm getting, so it goes from 3/3 to 7/7 immediately. That's,
I think, yeah, for sure. It's one of those cards where you don't really love it, but you see it with a blood gem immediately, you're like, oh, the nuts, let's take it, right? Because
that's nutty.
It's just strong the moment you play it, and then from then on, anything you can play on it is just pure upside, right? It's kind of like a Hank, where if you can guarantee
Hank's better.
Yeah, of course. I mean, no one really compares to Hank,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if Hank had, Quilboar, desires, like this would be Hank, right? This guy's cosplaying Hank, right? Pretty much. So this is this is one of those things where it's like, ooh, 3/3 for 3 stars. You don't really want to pick it up, but then you have a blood gem at the same time. You're like, okay, let's do it. And then you get another blood gem. Like, oh, it's huge. Right?
Yeah,
so how much is it? It's gonna be
7/7
11/11 after 2
after 2
gems,
turns.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 11/11 already. That's huge, right?
The
That's
turn
huge.
you play it, it's a 7/7. The turn after, it's 11/11. That's nuts. That's that's actually nuts. And
there's a huge cost in not having the blood gem, right? Like it is a 3-star 3/3.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Like
Well, okay, so you need a blood gem, right?
Yeah,
like
but if you have it at the same time, boom, this guy's nuts.
Oh my god. And the golden version's +6/+6 as well, right? So there's
I mean,
value
if
there.
you can pick up 2 of these and then you just have let's say you've banked 2 blood gems because you're like, I could open a brute next turn, right? And then you open 2 of them, you're like, oh,
yeah. I think that's definitely something you want to consider, banking blood gems, just because there's much better payoff, right? In terms of the things you can hit from Tavern Tier 1 to Tavern Tier 2 to Tavern Tier 3, right? Getting a 3 mana 7/7 instantly, that's gonna do a lot of damage.
Someone in chat saying a Reno hero power on this thing if you have a blood gem ready. Just what is that, a 13/13?
Yeah,
On the first
immediately.
turn and then a 20/20, yeah.
Yeah, Reno's gonna be interesting, right? There's a lot of targets, right? What we're gonna have to figure out is what is the best Reno target for Quilboars.
Well, there's a lot of like hero specific stuff.
Yeah, there is a lot. Heroes are. Yeah,
the next podcast is gonna be super fun as well, where we just go over everything. Be like, so what have you played? What have you played? Oh, this is the nuts. No, this is the nuts. Trust me.
The next podcast is gonna be so weird because it's gonna be like a day after the patch, or like 2 days after the patch. So everything's gonna be feeling so like I don't know what I don't know what's going on at all.
This takes me back to like the very first moment Collins and I played BGs, and after day 1, Collins is like, I'm not for sure. I don't know for sure, but I think demons are the nuts. This Wrathweaver guy is just like, if you find Mal'Ganis, you just keep scaling forever. It's insane. I'm just like, oh my god, that's true. Just like chasing Wrathweaver triples.
Yeah.
And it worked because no one knew what they were doing. So.
Damn, you're right.
Good time. All right, let's keep moving.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty strong card, most likely. Next card, Bannerboar. It's a 3-mana 2/5. At the end of your turn, play a blood gem on an adjacent Quilboar. So, this card's very interesting in that if you don't have Quilboar synergy, it does nothing, right? You need Quilboars or Agamaggan, but you know, whatever. You need Quilboars, right? And you get it at the end of your turn. You get an adjacent, right? So you can target 2 Quilboars. So it's not just I only hit one, you know, the one to the left. You hit 2 minions.
Yeah, the text indicates that it will just give it, you know, 2 gems as long as there's 2 Quilboar next to the guy.
So this kind of this really helps a lot of that synergy that you were looking for, right? That those cards, those hungry Quilboar minions, right? Yeah. The Tusky.
You got a Tusky on one side, you got a Brute on another side. This guy's having a good
Bristleback. Time. Bristleback's name is actually, I don't mind saying Bristleback.
Yeah,
but Tusky and Bristleback, right? Okay. Those are the ones you want here. So far, right? We haven't looked at all the cards and all the 3 draws. Maybe there's another one you want, but those 2 look really hungry for blood gems, and they do really well. You get that divine shield every turn. You get that +4/+4 every single turn for free without having to invest in the blood gems. You can use your blood gems on other things. So really good synergistic Quilboar card, right? If you have the Quilboar pieces, this just makes everything clean, makes everything easy. You don't have to worry too much about missing out on those blood gem abilities that trigger every turn. You just put them in the middle and you're good to go.
So from what I can tell right now, and it might be a little bit too early, but it seems like they've introduced such insane high roll scenarios where it's like, oh, this guy hit a Bannerboar and a Bristleback Brute. Like, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, beat it.
Like it's like, well, how much is this per turn? It gives some plus. It's like a golden sensei, pretty much, right? Yeah. Bannerboar on one Brute, and then you can put another one on the other side, which you know it could be a Tusky, it could be another Bristleback. So the high roll scenarios, and that is not insane to think of, right? Yeah, the fact that you opened 2 regular 3 drops, like you opened the Bannerboar and a Brute. That's not like unthinkably like, oh well, of course, if you have that, you're gonna own. So I'm a little scared right now, and I'm really thinking about the cards where, there's gonna be these certain hits that people have where like I can't beat that. Yeah. No matter what I did here. I'm always taking 10 or 12.
I think one thing they're scared of, right, is when they introduce a minion type and then no one plays it. Right?
Yeah, like oh, let's go back to playing Taunt Comp.
Yeah, like you just ignore it. Like, oh, I don't care about this, right? So they really want there to be a justification. There are good reason to play these new minion types, right? So I do think they err on the side of, oh, let's just make it a little bit too powerful and then we'll tone it down, you know, after people like get used to it, right? That same thing happened with Elementals, right? Where Elementals at first no one was really playing it, then they moved Genie down and then everyone was playing it, right? Because it was nuts, and they're like, okay, all right, you know, you guys had your fun, let's move it back up and nerf everything, right? And then, you know, then people were like playing it whenever it felt right, but it wasn't like crazy. So I do think there might be some overpowered strategies, right, with Quilboars, just because it's probably gonna lean towards overpowered more than underpowered, just so they want people to play the new stuff. So you know, scary stuff, you know, if you hit,
it's scary, right?
Yeah, it's also a Quilboar, right? So even if you just get 2 copies of it, you know, put them together.
Yeah, they buff each other, for sure.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not
that wouldn't be insane, right? It's just there's certain interactions with blood gems where you're like, oh, if I can guarantee get a blood gem every turn, and someone is not playing Quilboars, they're gonna be taking it.
Yeah, but it's not like the non-Quilboar one where you know, you have two of them and they don't do anything, right? Here, if you have two of them, at least you can buff themselves. It's not great. You need more Quilboars, but it is something, right? You know, and the stats isn't that bad. The 2-5 for 3, it's not the worst thing, right? So, I can see it definitely being played, and it definitely will be played because it's like half of a OP combo, right? You got Tusky this, you're good. You got Tusky, you get the Bristleback this, you're good, right? So people will be picking it up and hoping they hit the Bristleback, hoping they hit the Tusky, and then just go from there. So definitely going to be seeing this card, and I'm scared once again. But let's move on to the next card on the list. We've got Thorncaller. It's a 3-mana 4/3. Battle Cry and Death Rattle, gain a blood gem. So you play it, you get a blood gem. It dies, you get another blood gem. You play Brand this, you get 2 blood gems. You play Baron this, you get Brand Baron this. You play Baron this, you get 2 blood gems. You play Brand Baron this, you get 4.
Play a gold.
Does that make you made a gold? I'm not gonna go that far, but yes, there's ways to get more than 1 blood gem with this card, since it has both the Battle Cry and the Death Rattle ability, and there are cards that synergize with Battle Cry and Death Rattle. But generally, it's a get a blood gem and then get a blood gem per turn as well. So pretty valuable, especially if you have blood gem synergies, right? It's similar to the Frenzy guy in that you're getting a blood gem per turn. So it's another engine for your Tuskies, for your Bristlebacks. So it's a 3-mana one. So the nice thing is you get the Battle Cry. So let's say you get Thorncaller and Bristleback, right? You get the Battle Cry to do it this turn, and then you get the Death Rattle for the next turns. So it gives you that engine to keep scaling. So we'll see play. Also, you know, being a Battle Cry, you know, people pick it up just to complete the engines and stuff like that. So good card.
Yeah, just like not the super exciting card, but just something that makes the machinery work, right?
Yeah. Only issue is like late game, this might not be like super great, just because you know you want other value.
Oh yeah. No, this is just something, at least from what I can tell, something you just play and be like, oh, nice, I've got a blood gem now. I can leave that. Like, you can almost compare it to like the coin lady right now, where you pick it up and then it can be on your board for a couple of turns, and you're like, all right, enough of that. Let's get out of here. Like, I need board space. Let's put a real unit in.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be very similar feeling. Like, oh, you know, out with you. You know, I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Probably not a card you're going to be buffing with your blood gems. You know, like it's just going to be there to give you blood gems, then you throw it away, leave it in a ditch sometime later. You know, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, but yeah, that's Thorncaller. I think it's going to be played. It's going to be good if you can synergize with it immediately. It gives you the blood gem immediately, so you're not like losing a turn, right? Like I think that's the smart thing about this card, right? So let's say you have Tusky and this guy, right? If you buy them both, right, you're like, you know, I have to wait a turn before I get the blood gem, right? It would feel really bad because you're like, okay, so I can't get my Tusky ability, I can't get my Bristleback ability this turn. I have to wait until it dies, and then, you know, sometimes it won't die, you know.
Yeah. For sure, the Battle Cry.
But the Battle Cry really gives you that safety net where you're like, okay, I get the ability this turn, and then I can get it later on. So I do think I'll see play. I like the Battle Cry and Death Rattle for that safety net. I think that's very smart in the design aspect. So pretty cool. Next card, we've got Necrolyte, I believe. It is a 3-mana 3/3. Choose a friendly minion. It steals all blood gems from its neighbors. Wow. So this is an interesting card. It's like the reverse. Do you know what card I'm talking about? It's a 3/3 that eats the neighbors and combines the stats. You know what I'm talking about?
You're not talking about the demon, right?
The demon, yes, the demon. It eats the neighbors.
Oh, Void's Caller.
Void
No, not
Color.
Void
No,
Caller.
not Void Color.
It's like the Demon Hound thing. It's a 3-mana 3/3.
Yeah, yeah. It's a
Void
Tavern
Terror,
3/3
Terror.
Void Terror, exactly. Yeah, it reminds me of like the opposite version of that, where instead of eating your neighbors, you're just stealing their blood gems. You know, just give me all your blood gems.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I think the fact that it's a friendly minion and not a friendly Quilboar is huge. Yeah, it's the
Hydra, Deflecto, right?
yeah. You're thinking how I'm thinking. You give a cleave minion all your blood gems and you're good to go. So I think this isn't like this is not a card you pick up on Tavern 3. This is a card you pick up Tavern 5, Tavern 6, and you're like, oh, I found a Hydra, I found a 4 Reaper, 50 attack 4 Reaper, let's go, that kind of thing, right? Because you're stealing it from both of its neighbors, right? So it's not just one buff, right? Like sometimes you'll just have like a 20/20 and another 20/20, right? Because you've been
so I guess it's got a very similar feeling, this card, to the Vol'jin ability we described, where you can just dump stats early and then we can recover them later on. So you can say, oh, I needed to make this huge, this 2-drop we talked about, the or what's his face, RoadBoar, that you could put some gems on it and then you could golden him and it's huge and it gives you 2 blood gems a turn. But then in the late game, you're like, I don't really use this anymore. Sure, 2 blood gems a turn is fine, but I've got other ways of getting them. Oh, I can recover all those stats onto this juicy divine shield.
That's really important, right? That this exists and stuff like that. You're able to just stack something with blood gems in the early game and then later on just be like, I don't need you anymore. I'm gonna take your blood gems back. Let's put it on a cleave. Let's put on a divine shield minion. Let's put it on, some other unit that can utilize it. So I think that's really important to give the Quilboars like that transition into late game, where you have like those 2-mana 20/20s or something, and you're like, it doesn't do anything anymore. I get a gem a turn. Let's just give it to a cleave. Let's just give it to a divine shield, and then go from there.
Something that comes to mind when I'm thinking about this card is like, how does that turn look like, right? Because you have 2 things you're about to make worthless. Then you have 1 thing you're buffing. So board space wise, it's like, okay, I need to remove 2 things to allow for the Necrolyte and for the thing I'm buffing. And then after I've kicked 2 things, I'm about to kick another 2 things because they now have no more blood gems, and I need to add some real units. So that looks interesting. Where that's one of those turns where that's one of those hand lock turns where you buy like, not yet, hold, next turn, it's boom, 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 board just completely changes. So maybe like one of those turns where you do that and then you go with your brand Agamaggan or transition stuff.
They're introducing more Khadgar gameplay.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. That's gonna be a big turn, right? When you use the Necrolyte, because your board space is quite a big thing.
Yeah, you're right. You might have 4 dead cards by the turn you're using this, right? Because you need a space and a buff, and then 2 minions, and then your sell. So you'll have 3 empty board spaces essentially that you need to refill in a turn. So that is
well,
true.
technically you can keep one of them, right? Or both of them, where you just say, okay, you guys are
you can keep them,
things, but I don't really, you're looking to replace them for
like
sure.
Imagine the late game, right? You're like a 2/4 or 3/5, like that's doing nothing for you. So
yeah, that's popping a shield or protecting.
You just buy a bunch of like spores and you just put those in instead. You're like, all right, that's
the first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about these turns is like, oh, this is what I do when I do my brand, because I have this point when I'm doing well where I just say I'm gonna have a brand Amalgadon turn where I just at some point play brand, play Parmelfin, go up a tier, look for Amalgadons, make some board space. So this seems like the perfect thing to do on those turns where you're going to be shuffling the board around anyway.
Yeah, so definitely a complicated hero. I mean, complicated minion. I think it's important that it exists though to give a transitional window for the early game minions that you're buffing with the blood gems. So I think it's going to be interesting. More complicated. You don't have to steal 2 minion blood gems, by the way. You can just steal 1, right?
Yeah,
like, so it's not there's a bit of flexibility in that aspect, right? So
And there's just gonna, that there's just gonna be these moments where somebody just stacked blood gems early and then hits this and a Hydra in the same shop and be like, yeah, and you're just like,
That's
I
me.
don't know,
That's me.
yeah,
That's
like
me right
9
there.
gold,
Yeah.
9 gold, 10 gold. You have this 20 damage Hydra. I'll be like, yay, here he is.
Yeah, that's me right there. You'll be watch out.
Like, yep, presents. Yep, big Hydra, definitely me.
Yeah. All right. Next card we're talking about will be the Dynamic Duo. It's a taunt card. After a blood gem is played on another Quilboar, gain +1/+1. So the interesting thing is, I don't think that the 1+1/+1 is from blood gem stats. So I don't think like you can't. I don't think you can take it from like a Necrolyte. Like, let's say you had this coming and then you play Necrolyte and you try to take its stats. I don't think it works there. Right? It doesn't say like gain blood gem +1/+1. Right? So it's more of just like a synergistic blood gem Quilboar card. It's a taunt minion, 4 mana, 5/6, kind of similar to the demon 5/8. But it can gain stats, so it has more upside in that it has the potential of gaining stats. And also, blood gems on Quilboars is not that hard, right? Like, it's not that tough to get blood gems on Quilboars. So, like, especially if you have like the 3/5 or the 2/5 Quilboar, you're getting +2/+2 a turn and things like that. So this could definitely be one of your like scaling cards, similar to Molten Rock for elementals, where it just scales and becomes a big threat later on. So
like it's one of those cards when you just hit tier 4, you probably don't hate taking it, where you're just like, oh, okay, it's a 5/6, right? And I can maybe if you can turn it into a 6/7 immediately, right? Let's say you just played the round, one of your effects put a blood gem in your hand at the end of the round, and you open this, let's say it's 9 gold, you just went to tier 4, you're like, ooh, that's a 6/7 taunt with upside. That's pretty cool, right? Because Siegebreaker on its own is actually a really excellent minion to take. The problem is that it's got no future. You take Siegebreaker, like 3 turns later, you have to kill a 5/8. You're not really, you're not in it to be like, wow, if I get about Gaddis, I can put +2/+2 on this thing. It's amazing. But this one, like, if I get this golden, if I get more, like 2 of them on the board, they also have taunt. I can maybe play a champion of Yasharaj behind them. I've got Tusky, pump and onto Tusky every turn anyway. This thing is getting a steady +1/+1. So feels like a fun card. Maybe not, maybe I'm wrong about it. Maybe it does feel more oppressive. It feels like okay balanced. Like it's just there and you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun. I'm getting stats for free, right? I'm just getting scaling.
It seems decently good. I think if you're playing Quilboars, this is another card you want to pick up. In terms of like direction, right? What are the core Quilboar cards, right? I think this might make the cut in terms of like you have it, it buffs for free, you don't have to think about it, and you just have a big taunt. Having one big taunt is valuable sometimes. See if Murlocs aren't in and things.
Like something that we can already maybe see where spores and poisonous minions in general might just be more of the counter. It's also just like off the top of my head now, but it seems like Quilboars, a lot of them don't really get divine shield. So
there's that one that we've thought about, but other than that, we haven't seen any yet, right? We'll see if there's more divine shields.
So there's obviously like more down here, but like spores and poison scan.
It reminds me of elementals, right? Where elementals have the same function where they just get a bunch of stats and it's hard to get the divine shield ones. There's wildfire and then there's the divine shield one that really 2-for-1s, but this might be similar so far, right? We haven't seen a lot of divine shields. There's only that one copy, but everything else is getting a ton of stats. But yeah, probably will be played. We'll take a look at the next card, Bonkers. Bonkers. I want to mention this card feels bonkers. I mean, I had to make that joke. When I read it, it Wind Fury after it attacks gain a blood gem. So
I'm just happy that there's a card called Bonker for sure.
Yeah. So what really? Oh man, I should have put the I should have put the golden version like in here too. It's actually important to talk about the golden version as well. I think the golden version is also pretty important. But let me talk about the card. It's a 4 mana 4/7 with the ability Wind Fury. After this card attacks, gains a blood gem. So theoretically, you attack twice, and every time, and you get 2 blood gems per turn as long as you can live the first attack. So it's a 4/7. 4/7 on, you know, when you usually get this is not that. It's pretty tanky. 7 health. Turn, like the turn you get this is okay, and if you keep buffing it, it's pretty reliable. The golden version is the one that really like I am scared of the golden version of this card. So let's talk about the golden version. It's a 4 mana 8/14, right? Because it just adds the stats. Mega Wind Fury. After this attacks, gain 2 blood gems. Mega Wind Fury, 2 blood gems. Are you seeing what I'm seeing, chat? It's 8 blood gems a turn. If you can get it to survive it. If you can just stack this thing with blood gems. Like, just put all your blood gems on there if you get a golden, because like it's gonna pay back. You're gonna get the value back if it survives, right? Just like you get 8 blood gems a turn if you can keep this alive for 4 attacks. So scares me. The golden version scares me. I'm gonna see some games where people are gonna have a 50-something attack bonkers, getting 8 blood gems per turn, just murdering my whole board, and it's still alive. And I'm just like, why is it like this? You know, like what's going on? You know, it's just like, I don't get it. I'm scared of this card.
At that point, though, I think Poison Dongs are most of the time in the game. So I don't know, like
Reno, baby, what are you talking about?
Yeah, Reno, sure, but I think if you're getting the tier 4 minion golden and to the point where it's huge, so it's already survived a couple rounds. I think at that point, most of the time, you're just encountering Poison Dong.
Everyone does not have golden Agamaggan, you know. I mean,
yeah, but they're dead by then. That's fine.
There's gonna be some poor sucker. Me. I know it's me. It's always me.
There's people that have Poison Dong and there's people that don't. Right?
I'm gonna lose half my board, and I'm gonna see my opponent get 8 blood gems. I'm gonna be like, why isn't that me? Why isn't that me? You know, I just already know. I'm gonna see this. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this card. I think this card might see some changes. Hopefully, you know, I don't know. I'm scared of this one. You know, I've been scared of a couple ones already, but this one as well. I'm also gonna put some alert signs on this one. So yeah, I don't know. What about you? You're not as scared.
Really struggles against taunt comp as well, right? If that's still very popular in the meta, Divine Shield with arm. You know, this guy's gonna be like, oh yeah, bonk 20 damage Divine Shield. Yep, and you're done.
So you know, this thing's gonna have 22 attack, and it's gonna survive and gonna get another hit. You know, I see it. And George as well, right? You just give it Divine Shield. So
sure,
you know, there are some heroes that can utilize this. Right? You're playing Alakir, right? You just put it in the front, you're good to go, right? So there's a lot of ways to pick it up. You can play Lich King, Divine Shield it, right? I mean, Reborn it, right? You get 4.
Yeah, I'm by no means saying it's a bad card, right? I'm just saying it does look a bit more vanilla vulnerable, where it's just like, okay, stats, right? Just stats, but it seems like a lot of Divine Shield / poison things are gonna really mess with it. But yeah, if you triple into this early, oh man, that's fun, right?
No, fun's the wrong word.
Like here's look, this is the situation, right? Your Zephyrus at 7 gold. You have two pairs, or you have a pair, 7 gold, 4 gold, level to 3 gold. Hero power, a bonker, 7 gold. Then yeah, I mean, you're just off, right? This guy's gonna scale like mad.
I'm scared. All right, so you know,
I think if you triple into it early, sure, but I think if you like naturally pick them up later, a little less oppressive than it might seem.
Yeah, but I mean, it's always those early triples that are the oppressive, right? That early triple whatever, right? That's where the oppression lies, and that's where people really abuse things, right? So high level players are just gonna do that, and I got to deal with it. That's my problem.
They have a bonker. Okay, never mind.
So yeah, I don't know. This one scares me, but it seems like a fun card. I do admit that a lot of these cards seem fun, so that's nice, right? Like. A lot of these cards, I want to play them. I want to see how they go, So that's always nice to see when it's, fun minions are always cool because you see them every game, right? So you're like, oh, this is really nice. This is really cool, right? Like, when you hit 2 hoggers, right? Shity's like, the fun value goes off, So I like seeing more cards that give you that feeling. So. Definitely going to be a little bit interesting to see how Bonkers feels in the games. But let's move on to our next minion. We've got the Groundshaker. It's a 4-mana 2/4 Quilboar. After a blood jump is played on this minion, give your minions +2 attack for the next combat only. So I don't know. It's not a Bonkers.
It's not a bonker. Yeah, I mean, nothing's gonna be the same after we reviewed bonker, right? Once you go bonker, you never go back. Right?
Yeah, but this one's interesting because it buffs all your minions +2 attack. It's only for the next combat, but it is reasonable, right? You put a blood gem on it, and now all your minions are a little bit stronger. So it might be something you want to put 1 blood gem on early to have like that stat line. So. But I don't know.
Well, there's also nothing that specifies here that you're limited to 2 attack, right?
No,
so
no. You can stack it if you want to do.
Yeah, this might be one of those late game things where you somehow get a golden version of this, and you're just like pump, 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 and you're just huge damage.
Another thing, is it like Deathwing? If it's like Deathwing, that's a lot crazier, right? Like where it affects Death Rattle minions. Right, then we're talking, then I'm scared of this. Right, if it has that like Deathwing aura where it's like
no, I get what you mean.
Yeah, then we're talking, right? Then there's a little bit more cheese value where you're just like, okay, I'll just play like Beast and then play the 1 copy of this, put all my blood gems on it. My Beasts are summoning, like 20 attack, rat packs, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, I'll just win that way. But if that is the case, then I'm scared. If that's not the case, then I think this is like a an okay early mid game attack stat.
That it wouldn't affect the
I hope so. I don't want to see that. I just want they're gonna nerf that if that's the case, because you could cheese games with that.
What I can tell right now, this doesn't, like, it might be super wrong on it, but right now it doesn't feel game breaking. It's just one of those things where it's gonna be a meme at some point where someone has a golden one and they just pump +20 attack on their entire board.
Yeah. Maybe, I mean, and it's also not Quilboars, right? So you can have like a full board of Divine Shield minions and just put that in there and then see if it works, right? Like, this could be used as like a last ditch effort type card. That's what I'm thinking. Like sometimes you'll have like 4 or 5 blood gems that you generated, and then you'll just like buy one of these, put a bunch of blood gems on it with all your Divine Shield minions, see if you can get a win from there. But other than that, I'm not like too impressed. But if it's aura, then I'm scared. But I don't think it will be. So yeah. Next, got any final thoughts on this card?
No. Just looking at the next card already.
Okay, next card we've got Bristleback Knight. It's Wind Fury, it's Divine Shield, it's Lifesteal, it's Taunt. I'm kidding. It's
Zilliax.
It's Wind Fury, Divine Shield with Frenzy, gain another Divine Shield. So it's a 5 mana. It's our first 5 mana card, I believe. And it's one of those Quilboars with Divine Shield that gets another Divine Shield. So it's got that Deflectobot essence in it, right? Where it's a Divine Shield minion that can regain Divine Shield, right? There's not a lot of those. Deflecto is really the only one. So this is it reminds me of Tusky, right? It's a different Tusky where It's a it's Deflecto Tusk or something. Maybe
Deflecto. I choose you.
Yeah.
Right.
Where
the first thing I think of when I see this card, I'm just like, that's the targets for my blood gem transfusion, right? This is the one that I'm pumping, right? Just imagine with how much health, right? If once again poison, right? Like, by the way, I think the first 2 days while everyone's having fun with bristlebacks and shit, I'm just gonna play poison scam and just get top 2 every game when everyone's
I'm gonna be playing Tusky boys, the Tusk boys. That's me. Yeah.
It's something I want to experiment with. So anyone who wants to just crash the fun, right? Just have your big Quilboars. I'm just gonna play poison. So, but yeah, this does look like it's gonna be really nasty when you get to pump it somehow, right? You get to put a lot of stats on it.
Yeah.
So looks like it's one of those minions where like, oh, I get to attack and 4 of my minions are dead. Okay, that's fun, right? Like whenever you're fighting, I don't know, a Jandis or something, and have a Golden Whirly, the Wind Fury Elemental, and it's just chonk, 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 chonk. All right, 4 of my things are dead. This feels like something that can happen when you get a golden version of this to just destroy everything.
Yeah, so definitely this is one of the key targets for blood gems, key targets for Necrolyte pumping. Just making sure that you have some type of divine shield minion that can really win you the late game, right? And it's better than a lot of the divine shield minions since it gets it back, right? It gets 2 divine shields, so Deflecto-esque, right? So definitely a really good card.
The frenzy is once per turn, right?
Yeah,
like max, so it's not like gonna keep going.
That would be so stupid.
again. But still, like
I'd be crying.
Getting the guaranteed reset, well, semi-guaranteed reset is still very good.
Yeah. This also looks to be one of like your best targets if you're playing Menagerie for Quilboars, right? Like that one, and maybe Tusky. Tusky's hard because you don't get blood gems if you're playing Menagerie, right? You have to run two Quilboars, so you have to spend 3 or 2 gold every turn buying some type of Quilboar generation, right? But this one doesn't have that drawback. So if you're playing Menageries, right, this is one of the key targets. Where you're playing Lightfang, this is one of the key targets. This is a good card, just regardless. Like even if you're like you level, you triple, and you get this, like yeah, you're not too sad. I mean, you'd rather have a Lightfang or something, but like in terms of like just a good stat card early, this is pretty good stats, and getting the divine shield is also pretty valuable. So seems to be a powerful card.
Yeah, this is or let's say you're pulling an early 5 and instead of a brand you pull this thing, and like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna destroy people for a while. I'm not gonna I guess I will just destroy them, right? So yeah, your Rafam, your Maev, your Jandis, who are pulling sometimes multiple 5 drops on turn 8. This is one of the things that's going to pop out sometimes, and your entire board of regular dudes is going to donk, 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 donk. So that's something to look forward to as well.
Look forward to that's not what I'm looking forward to.
That's one way of saying it. Yeah, sure.
Oh man. All right, our next card is Aggem Thorncurse. Is that right? This one's being butchered.
Aggem Thorncurse, I think.
Aggem Thorncurse. All right. It's a 5 mana 3/6 with the ability, after a blood gem is played on this minion, give a friendly minion of each minion type +1/+1. So it's Lightfang. It's Light Curse. It's Thorncurse. Thornfang.
Thornfang. Yeah. Let's go with Thornfang.
I like Thornfang. Yeah, it's
Quilfang.
the Quilfang. Yeah, Quilfang probably makes more sense.
It's a Quilfang. Yeah.
So it's the Lightfang. It's the Quilboar version of Lightfang, essentially, where you're playing blood gems on this minion, then it's buffing all the other friendly minion types. I assume you play a blood gem on this, and if this is the only Quilboar, it also gets the +1 as well. That's what I'm gonna assume, right? Like that would make sense to me.
Give a friendly minion of each minion type. It doesn't specify give another friendly or
that's what I'm saying.
So I would say that this can be your Quilboar, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have this card, a Quilboar generation or something, and then a bunch of, you know, menagerie stuff, then you could make your own Light Fang S combination. So
I think this is go ahead.
I do think this one is gonna be hard to use. Like full menagerie, I think what's likely is you'll have this in a generation, and then you'll have like three types or something like that. Or
yeah, I rarely play full menagerie anyway these days.
I do.
I think 3-4 types is usually the max I go for.
I run, you know, 6 types, and
6 types in the
and I can't do anything.
There's no compromising here. Right?
Yeah, like that's me. So I mean, that issue is that I struggle to see how you're gonna get this and Quilboar generation. I mean, Blood Gem generation and a full board of other types. Like that's my issue with it. It seems difficult, but
what I immediately think of with this card is where you'd had a mid game where you generated, like you have one of those boards where you said, oh, you know, I had a Bonker and I had, you know, let's say 1 or 2 other cards that were capable of generating, and I have like 4 or 5 shards in my hand. Then I open this thing and I just go like tempo, right? Because all you need is 2 other types, and then every blood gem you have reads give +3/+3, right? So that's already pretty. And so I think this card's value increases a lot on those situations where you have a couple gems ready to go and you're not like, oh, I'm buying it now and then I'm getting my gems next turn. It's not like,
right.
oh, we're ready to go. It's immediate pump, right? It's immediate +4/+4 on 3 things, which is still, you know, that's still golden Light Fang on 3 things, right? That's still pretty good.
Yeah, if you are saving your blood gems, right, and you're the type of player that wants to make sure each blood gem counts, then this can probably be one of the good targets to get that payoff in terms of value. So I do agree with that.
Sure.
I don't know how good it's gonna be in terms of like general value, right? It's hard for me to analyze and see. Oh, this is gonna be great. I'm not particularly scared of this one, you know, off the top of my head. It doesn't give me any fear vibes. So
it's gonna require specific boards for me as well. Yeah.
So it's an interesting card. Could be good. Could be not what you want to put your blood gems on, right? If you're committing to a full Quilboar board, right, then this doesn't really help that well, right? It's just a +1/+1 if you don't have other.
No, I think it's definitely like the specific case where you had an okay start, let's say with 2 Quilboar or so, and then you picked up a bronze. I think that's usually how Menagerie goes anyway. You pick up a bronze Warden and you're like, oh, this is kind of nice, and then you pick up the Divine Shield, Elemental, or a module, right?
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh, how cool. Like I have something now that if I hit Lightfang or Brand, and it kind of just organically comes to be. I think this card is the same way where you have some Quilboars that are taking care of the blood gems, and then you just added good units because that's what you do. You just buy good units. You have an egg with Divine Shield, and you have a dragon with Divine Shield, and then this guy comes along and like, oh, sure, why not? Let's turn +1/+1 of the blood gem into +3/+3.
Very fair. Yeah. So, you know, it has specific edge cases, but it's not a card that you're going to be playing every game or at every situation. You have to find the right board state, the right position of blood gems in your hand and things like that to make the payoff worth it. But could have value in the right situation. So I would keep it in your mind when you're playing and seeing your board state and saying, oh, does Light Fang work here? Oh, maybe this one will be my replacement for a turn or something. But yeah, next card we're talking about is Agamaggan. Shady, please, can you help me?
Agamaggan? I don't know. Let me have I need the print is so small, right? Agamaggan would be my guess.
Agamaggan. Agamaggan.
Yeah, we'll call it the Dong. Sure.
Agamaggan. Agamaggan. The Great Boar. Your blood gems give an extra +1/+1. So basically you get double value in blood gems. Pretty pretty simple ability, but still powerful. If you're running a full Quilboar archetype, right, then you're getting double value as soon as you put this in. If you get 2 of them, you're getting triple value. So definitely, if you have a lot of good blood gem generation, this is very easy to just be what makes you scale out of control, right? You double value, triple value, super easy to just go popping off. Yeah, so I think it's a good card. It's very simple, but very powerful. So you're gonna see it if you're running a Quilboar deck. It's a beast, actually. It's not a Quilboar.
Yep.
I just noticed that now. Does that change things?
Not necessarily, I think.
There are some that kind of buffs the previous card we talked about, right? It gives you some synergy in there. That is something to keep in mind.
If you get those two together,
Yeah.
that's I think that's again one of those things where you're playing Maeva or Farm and you get the double 5-drop and you're like, nice, where you get those two together, right, with something that gives blood gems. It does feel like one of those cards that you don't necessarily open it on tier 5 and you're like, oh, the nuts, right? But it's one of those early triples. If you have any type of blood gem generation, sure, +2/+2 return seems really good.
Yeah.
Or one of those cases where you already have a really good setup to generate blood gems and you've just ended the combat and you have 4 or 5 left. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Let's pick it up and let's double the value of these babies.
Yeah. The it not being a Quilboar, it loses synergy with profit of the boar, where if you play a blood Quilboar, you get a blood gem, so you don't have that value. It also loses synergy on Bannerboar, where you can play a blood gem and adjacent Quilboar. So those are the only 2 cards we've talked about so far where it loses synergy by not being a Quilboar, but it still pays for itself. Just getting double value on your blood gems is too powerful to deny, even if you don't get you can't synergize by playing the Quilboar. And even the synergy that you're missing out on isn't that important. So I still think that it not being a Quilboar isn't a big deal. So I think this will see a lot of play if you're playing a full Quilboar comp, and it's gonna be good.
Yep. There's some questions that arise where people say, "Oh, if it's a beast, is it going to be in when Quilboar's a ban and stuff?"
Oh yeah, that's true.
Back when Megasaur was a thing, Megasaur was completely tied to Murlocs, even though Megasaur was a beast. So I would expect this to behave exactly the same way.
Yeah. It would be so weird if it was gone, if beasts were gone. So I think this is gonna be in every game, like regardless of whether beasts are in or not.
It's always gonna be in until the point where they start rotating Quilboars out, which will be a future patch.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Our next topic is Charlga. Yeah. It's a 6. It's a Tavern tier 6. So these are the big boys. These are the cards that sometimes you can build your whole deck around. Usually the 6 drops hopefully tend to have that ability, right? Like you don't want more like Kangurs, where sometimes you pick a Kangur and you're just like it doesn't do anything. I have no mechs. But at the end of your turn, play a blood gem on all friendly minions. It's a 7/7. 6 mana 7/7. At the end of your turn, play a blood gem on all friendly minions, including yourself. So it's a 6 mana 8/8. This is pretty nuts, and it's always good. Actually, there's no.
The immediate vibe was Eliza, where it's like, oh, I'll just play it and my board gets buffed no matter what. Now,
there's
Eliza,
no.
obviously,
Yeah.
Eliza can go a little crazier, right? You have this Scallywag or something, you get the huge buff. So not quite like Eliza insane when you just pull it early. But if you have some synergy, right? You got your Tusky that needs to be fed. You got your Bristleback or your Brute or whatever it is. This is totally like fine if you have no synergy whatsoever, and it becomes nutty when you have synergy.
This is my new Light Fang. Okay, I'm getting this every game.
We're upgrading.
But yeah, this is pretty crazy because it's a card that doesn't need flexibility. Imagine this is your Quilboar for Menagerie, dude. Oh my god, dude. We're like, yes. Ah man, that'd be fun. But yeah, definitely a card that's gonna see play just because its ability is so flexible, and that it's not on all friendly Quilboars and things like that, right? That's something that Caligo's had, right? But the one issue is that it's more of a set it and forget it type card where you can't like abuse it and like keep replaying it or getting multiple procs of it per turn, right? You have to play it and then you're like, okay, I've got my engine or one of my engines. I need another engine that I can use my gold on. So it's a good card, definitely. Makes your board strong for free. It triggers at the end of the turn, so you don't have to wait to get the ability. You get the ability as soon as you get it, and you know it scales. You know, if you it synergizes with the card with the Agamaggan or something.
Yeah, so you could have a Groundshaker on your board where now your entire board gets +2 attack every turn as well.
Oh yeah.
On top of that, which has definitely a bit more that Eliza vibe. Uh, the pig, the boar we talked about as well, as you mentioned, that's going to be good with it. And then just dynamic duos, probably going to proc like crazy, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
It
I
would.
assume they would, like the other 6 would just like ding, 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 ding.
Ding ding ding. Yeah.
It might not work like that, but I assume it
I
does.
assume it would.
So
Yeah.
there's a couple of things where if you have the synergy for it, it's going to be nutty. If you don't have the synergy, it's just like, yeah, it's
It's so
fine. Like,
good. Yeah.
don't mind it, right? It's
I would
just,
love. I'd
it's
love
not.
a card that gives me +1/+1 and all my minions every turn for no drawback. I mean, I'd love
Sure.
that. Yeah. And
So yeah, interesting to see how these cards are gonna fare and if there's gonna be some nerfs coming out soon or not.
yeah.
It's gonna be cool.
I believe this is our next card is our last card here.
Yes.
Captain Flat Tusk. It's a 6-mana 9/6 Quilboar. After you spend 3 gold, gain a blood gem. So every turn, past turn 7, you're getting 3 blood gems pretty much or more, right? Because you can sell and buy,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure the blood, it doesn't like reset back to 3 every turn, right? So you can have 1 gold left, and then you buy a minion, and then you use all 10 gold, and then bam, you've got 4 blood gems. Every 3 turns you'll get 4, right? So it's like 3/3/4 essentially, right? 3/3.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of when I see this is Hogger. I'm just like, I'm already planning, right? So I'm playing Hogger and I'm getting a bunch of free stats. But then the funny thing is that probably if I have this and I get up to a point where I'm fully infinite, I'll probably throw it away because it's not worth my time to play the fucking +1/+1. So I can see myself like, yeah, you buffed my board. Now get out of here. I don't have time for animations. Just like, keep APMing.
Yeah,
But
if this works with Hogger like crazy, where
for sure.
yeah,
I could see it help the Hogger off the ground pretty much, right? Where you get, when you're not really full crazy yet, you just have 2 regular Hoggers, but you tripled into this, you're still just buying every pirate, right? So you're still spending money like crazy the whole time.
yeah. What scares me is that the APM becomes like twice as hard because it's a spell that goes in your hand, right? So you're buying
Yeah,
spell, playing spell, buying spell, play spell, buy spell, play spell. You're just like
that's why
you're just going
for
crazy.
sure.
Yeah,
That's why
so
I think I'm selling this card once I'm full infinite because I don't have time for it anymore.
yeah. So
But it's good to help the Hogger combo going, right? When you're not full infinite, where you still have some time left in your turns.
yeah, it sounds like pain, but it's free 3 blood gems every turn. Sometimes more, right? I would say probably 4 every turn, right? Because you're gonna sell minions. So
Yeah,
let's just say you get 4 blood gems every turn. That's pretty good.
the instinct is underwhelming, but I'm not sure. Like,
Well,
maybe I'm just comparing it to the other one, right? The one
it's
that
a
gives.
flat 4 blood gems every turn, right? So that you can place on whatever, right? You can place on your cleaves, and there's no like you can target whatever, and it gives you a bit of flexibility. Um,
Sure.
I'm not sure if which of the two is going to be better, right? Like, maybe you just want +1/+1 on all your minions instead, right? Because that's that's 7/7 in value. This is like 4/4 in value, but it's flexible. So, there might be an argument which one, if you have to choose between the two, which one do you take? But they they seem playable, right? Like it's not like I won't play this, right? If you get it and the other options aren't that good, you'll still pick it up.
The base stats are good enough, right? That you're not like, ugh, 4/4 little rag. There's no way I can do anything with this.
Yeah. So and it's a very flexible activation cost, right? You just have to spend gold, right? It's not like you have to buy Quilboars or anything like that, right? You could just have this and then not do anything about Quilboars at all, right? Like just ignore the Quilboar tag and then just do whatever.
It's a nice passive thing for sure. It's a nice passive thing, and it being a Quilboar could be okay where it helps adapt to your Agamaggan, etc. So,
yeah, so I think it's playable. I don't think it won't be used. So
it's gonna be super fun with hoggers, like that's for sure. Like,
yeah,
when you have 2 hoggers and you triple into this, which is very reasonable because with hoggers you just buy a bunch of the same pirates anyway, so you get triples. And there's a lot of cards that you can't really take where you're like, yeah, this doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, so that's gonna be the final minion here. So we've kind of talked about the patch. We've talked about the things. Anything sticks out to you, right? So now that we've talked about everything, does any hero stick out to you? Does any minion stick out to you? Anything you want to try? Anything you're excited for? From this huge patch that we have here, are you excited for the MMR reset? All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean all of it really.
Woo! What a boring answer. I need more specific shit.
Yeah, but I was gonna get started on my list, Collins. So starting with the meta implications, I want to see how it fares versus poison and taunt comp, because right now I just see a lot of stats with not that much divine shield, so it could really find its weakness in just like you have really high damage divine shields or you have poisons. In terms of the heroes, Vol'jin seems the one that's at least going to be the most fun. If not like the strongest or weakest or whatnot, at least the most fun, because you're going to have those really fancy turns, right, where you can swap a battle master, etc. Cards, early RoadBoar with Tusky feels like it's going to be a bit of a problem, right? If you get that combination early, it's just going to get you a ton of tempo for free. Any really of the good combos early are going to feel oppressive from what I can tell right now. You get a Bannerboar and a Bristleback early, you get a Tusky and you get a RoadBoar early, you get anything honestly that generates gems, a Bristleback early. It's going to be pain if you are the unfortunate soul that queues up into that comp when they just hit it. And then other than that, have a good time, make some huge Bristleback Knights, get a golden bonker on 9 gold and all that stuff. So like, I don't know how, but we're gonna do it. Maybe tripling into 4s is gonna be okay then, right? Like you've got bonker, you've got maybe not dynamic duo and bonker. It's worth a shot, I guess.
Yeah.
So what about you, Collins? What's the main things you're looking for?
All right, so what's scaring me is the cards that I'm scared of. That's Tusky, that's Bristleback, and that's Bonkers. Those are the 3 that scare me. The heroes, none of them really scare me. You don't see, I mean, you'll see the heroes, but you're not playing the heroes every single time. So, we'll kind of get an adjustment on that. Vol'jin could be really strong. The blood one doesn't necessarily, it feels okay. There are a lot of good synergies, right? You get that Bristleback trigger immediately. You get that Tusky trigger immediately, right? That's a little bit scary. You know what I think? I think this archetype's going to be very, very strong early and then might start struggling in the mid to late game, right? You can really, you can clearly see the power early. You can clearly see Tusky. Bristleback is going to blow people out early, but once you start getting into the late game, right, getting +1/+1 per turn on all your minions, that's not that crazy of a late game play, right? Getting +4/+4 4 Blood Knights a turn, that's not that crazy of a late game play, right? It does have good synergies with Bristlebacks, with the Divine Shield, with the Knight, right? But I can definitely see them starting to struggle against Murlocs. If a full fleshed out Murloc comp, I can see him struggling against Nadina dragons. I can see him struggling with elementals at times. You know, like there's no poison in Quilboars, right? So, I mean, there's no poison in everything. To be fair, right? Like there's no poison anywhere, except for Agamaggan. But I can see him struggling with like a gigantic molten rock, right? Like too early, right? Your frenzies aren't triggering and things like that. It could be a hassle. So, but the early game is really looks good, and that could be like all you need, really, right? If you can get a really good early game that allows you to level and just get like your early 6-drop Quilboar, right? Like that could be enough to like just bridge the gap into being stronger than your peers, right? If you're getting +4/+4 for free, if you get Divine Shield value for free, right? Early, if you just have a Tusky, Bristleback, Bannerboar, right? Like you don't have to touch those anymore. Like
you're super strong.
Yeah, you're super strong, right? And you just level, and you're just like you get it early. Tier 6 Quilboar, even the tier 5 Quilboar with the Wind Fury, Divine Shield, right? You're pretty good, and that could be enough to like guarantee a top 4 placement just from that.
You're gonna be a bit more of the aggressor in the lobby, right?
Yeah,
you're gonna be the bully. It's like when Pirates came out and people were playing a ton of like double rip snarl mid game. It's gonna have a very same vibe to that, where you're the guy with the 2 rip snarls. You're the guy that's just like, well, this is the check. If you don't have a good comp, you're taking more than 20 here. You can't just have some tier 1 pairs still on your board and still be fishing for triples against those comps, for sure.
So next week's going to be really interesting because we're actually going to have played with the set a little bit, right? And we would have just put a couple days. So there's going to be a lot of ideas fresh in our minds. So, definitely check out next week's podcast. Is going to be really interesting, but that is going to do it for us today. Kind of a long one, to be expected. This is the biggest update we've had since we started this podcast. So put a lot of time. 3 times the topics, that's a lot that's 3 times the effort. It's actually more because I messed up, but it's pretty much the same. But I do thank you guys for sticking around, listening, and a lot of good insights there from Shady and myself. You can definitely give us some feedback at hsbgpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on a lot of the podcast directories, and we have a good time talking about the game. A lot of interesting things going on. We've got a tournament on Sunday, I believe. So if you guys are interested in good tournament gameplay, go watch that on the Collegians channel, and we'll see you guys next week. Got anything to take us off here, Shady?
Just excited to do this podcast, but even more excited for the next one. We've actually played with the cards. You can say, yep, remember all those things we said? Well, none of them are true. Our Lord and Savior is this random card we barely talked about. So yeah, it'll be fun, right? You wanna make some predictions. You wanna let the people kick W, and it's like, remember when he rated this 1-star, kick W. So yeah, it'll be fun. Just looking forward to it.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys later. Take care and have a nice day.